Welcome to Doctors of the Baobab, a podcast where we delve into the rich tapestry of experiences, challenges, and triumphs that shape the diverse journeys of doctors in Africa and the diaspora. I'm your host, Dr. Nondumiso Makunga Stevenson. I'm a medical doctor, a life coach, and I'm also the founder of Ubuntu Doctor Coaching. At Ubuntu Doctor Coaching, we're dedicated to helping doctors find fulfillment in both their personal and their professional lives. On this podcast, we go beyond the white coat to get to know the doctors that we admire and respect. So join me as we explore the stories behind the stethoscope, uncovering the humanity behind the medical expertise. Whether it's navigating the complexities of patient care, overcoming personal obstacles, or advocating for change in healthcare systems, each episode promises to inspire, to educate, and to uplift. So sit back, relax, and prepare to embark on a journey of discovery with Doctors of the Baobab. In today's episode, I am over the moon, excited, thrilled to have as my guest Dr. Michelle Bailey. Dr. Michelle Bailey is a retired, board-certified pediatrician, currently working as an executive medical director for a top-tier global contract research organization. Over the 2 decades that she spent at Duke University Medical Center, she has coached and mentored numerous medical students, trainees, and faculty on physician self-care. And she's also served as co-director of The Refuge, which is a mindfulness-based stress management program for medical professionals. She's passionate about physician well-being and founded Michelle Bailey and Company LLC, where she provides coaching, educational courses, and other services to support the physician community. She's known for empowering physicians to take control of their career, and for those who are ready, she helps them to successfully transition to a non-clinical career that they love. She strongly believes in mindfulness as a vehicle to optimize child health and physician well-being and helping others live purpose-driven lives. So you can also learn more about it. It's not enough what I've shared with you. You can go to her website at www.michellebailey.com. That is spelled DrMichellEBailey.com. Dr. Michelle Bailey, welcome to Doctors of the Baobab podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Nondumiso. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Awesome. So we always start at the roots, right? And you will take us through a journey through your career, through your personal life, how you make decisions, what experiences have shaped you, and of course, your life in medicine. So share a bit with us. Take us to your childhood, where you were born. What was your upbringing? Just take us through to that moment in time when you became aware of yourself as Michelle Bailey.
Well, my story starts in New York City. I was born and spent the early years of my life in Spanish Harlem. And I was very fortunate. I have 2 loving parents that are still with us today. And at the time, my maternal grandparents, who were caregivers for us while my parents were working. My parents originated in South Carolina and migrated, like many did at the time, to New York City looking for a better life and better financial opportunities. And they both were able to land jobs with the city and the government. and we worked very hard as physical laborers. And so I learned at an early age the importance of a good work ethic, and that has served me incredibly well. When I was in sixth grade, we had a career fair, and lots of different individuals came in to talk about the work that they did, the industries that they were in. And one of those happened to be a physician. And I will say, I did not have a lot of experiences growing up as a kid with physicians. My parents were sort of the belief that if you were not bleeding out or had a bone protruding or something like that, then there was really no need for you to see a doctor. And so this physician who came to speak was talking about the work that he did and how he helped patients. And he really focused on the science of it. And I was a curious little girl and always wondered why things worked the way they did, especially the body. I just thought it was amazing that our body inherently knew to breathe and our heart knew to beat without us consciously having to think about it. And so everything that he shared sounded amazing to me. And we had to write an essay following the career fair on what we wanted to pursue as a career. And so I wrote this beautiful essay. I got an A on it. But my teacher asked that I stay after class. She wanted to talk to me. My sixth grade teacher, Perla Holder, I will never forget her. And she said, you wrote this essay. And as I was reading through it, I thought at the end you were going to say, and so that's why I want to be a doctor. But instead, you said, that's why I want to be a nurse. And so I was confused by that because they were getting nurses at the career fair. And I said, well, yes, because boys are doctors and girls are nurses. And she sat me down and had this very impactful conversation with me and really helped me understand that my gender, of my sex at birth, did not determine my capability in this world. And she said, if this is the only reason that you were not striving to be a doctor, I encourage you to strive to be a doctor. And ever since that day, that's when I made the decision that I would become a doctor. And I am very grateful that I had many angels along my journey supporting me on the path and that I was able to do this. And it was before the time where you had the internet accessible. So I went to the library and read books about how do you become a doctor because no one in my family was a doctor. And, I talked to my teachers and guidance counselor and, they felt that I had the grades to do it, but were not super encouraging in this path. But there was, I feel like, a calling on my life. And it made sense. Like so many things fell into place for me when I made this decision to become a doctor. And, it's what gave me the determination to succeed and overcome all of the obstacles that were in my path, being the first in my family to do this.
Wow, that's a very, very powerful story. And you touched on a few issues I hope I will be able to get to during the course of this interview. The first is about the role of mentors in our lives in general, but particularly so in the medical profession. But you also you talked about the sense of medicine being a calling for you. And do you feel
Yes.
over the years that has changed, that you think medicine still has for you or still gives you your sense of purpose, or has that evolved over the years?
It's a really good question. I do still believe that it's a calling. And at this stage of my life and career, I have a better understanding that my true calling was to serve and to heal. And being a doctor was one path to doing that, but not the only path. And I get to now see and appreciate the different ways in which I facilitate healing for others, whether that's serving as a mentor for medical students and residents and trainees who didn't have anyone as well, to be a source of encouragement to them and a safe space for them to share some of their doubts and fears and insecurities so that they're able to heal and let go some of those beliefs that don't serve them and that would otherwise hold them back. I notice in different settings, whether it was sitting with patients and their families or having an open door policy and having colleagues just come and sit in my office chair, that people would say to me, I feel so much calmer in your presence. And I share things with you that I've never shared with anyone else. And I think that's the gift that was placed on me to share with the world, this ability to create safe spaces, to truly see people for who they are, even when they may not be able to see or appreciate that for themselves, and to hold that belief for them and to encourage and support them. I think that is the true healing that I was put on this earth to do. And so, yes, that is still my calling. And the ways in which I'm doing that have changed over the years, but I will always be a physician. And first and foremost, I will always be a healer.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love the way that you talk about how naturally that comes to you, and often you will have conversations with doctors where they talk about medicine being a gift, a gift to yourself, of course, your own gift, but also that a gift that you can share with other
Yes.
people. So we take it as a privilege to be in that position where we can bring healing to the people that are around us, whether it's patients or family or even other doctors, as you do now as a life coach. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to go back now to the young Michelle. You're still Michelle at that point, and now deciding that you've done exceptionally well in school and you're ready for medical school. How did you make that
Mm.
decision?
I attended Spelman College for my undergraduate years, and it was really important to me to be in a space of learning where I could see other people that looked like me, that were smart and ambitious and goal oriented. And that ended up being a great place for me to thrive and set up a really good, strong foundation of belief in myself. And from there, I looked to see how was I going to get into medical school. As you know, there are many people who set out on this path, and because of the rigor that's involved, it can be really challenging to pass the admissions test and to get invited for interviews and to get into medical school. And what some people actually don't even know is that you have to pay to apply to schools. And so it's a place where there can be some inequities if people don't have the resources to apply to medical school. So the places that you actually submit applications for can be quite limited, which then can reduce your chances of getting in. I was very fortunate. I worked during college part-time to save money. My parents, I am so grateful for. They funded my undergraduate education without me having to take student loans, which was such a gift. And when I tell you, when people say there's no way I can do this, there seems to always be a way when there's the determination and drive that is there. And my parents both were what would be considered blue collar workers and, definitely not high wage earners. But my dad found a way to leverage his pension funds to be able to take a loan against them to pay for my schooling. And I also was fortunate to get scholarships to Spelman as an out-of-state student as well. But I looked at the money I had, decided how many schools I could apply to, and I was very strategic about it. And I did want to be closer to family in New York. And so the schools that I applied to were all schools in the New York City area. And I was fortunate to earn acceptance to State University of New York, Health Sciences Center at Brooklyn. And I wanted to be around family, to have that support, to have the people who I knew had faith in me and believed in me as I set out to embark upon this very rigorous undergraduate medical education.
Wow. I want to just pick up on something that you mentioned regarding your choice of Spelman as in your undergraduate journey, that you wanted to be around people that looked like you. How important is that in your profession in terms of promoting that in your journey, in your medical journey as a doctor, but particularly from the perspective of the patients as well? Can you share your
Mm-hmm.
insight around representation, if I can call it that, from your experience?
Yes. Representation really does matter. And, as I mentioned earlier, I had not seen any physicians that looked like me. No one who was Black, no one who was a female. And so, it was something that I knew I could do. And yet there still was this difficulty of figuring out the how. How am I going to do it? There's no one I know that looks like me that I can talk to about it. I did have the opportunity to meet someone, Black male physician, who was my sister's pediatrician, Dr. Gosling. And my sister is 16 years younger than I am. And so at that point, I already knew that I wanted to be a pediatrician. Well, I knew I wanted to be a physician, and I loved kids. I knew whatever I did with my life, I would end up working with children. And so it just was a very logical fit that I would be a pediatrician. And he allowed me to shadow with him so that I could see what a pediatrician actually does. And I loved the way he interacted with families, the way he was able to provide education and guidance so that families understood how to best care for their child and how to promote the health and well-being of the child. And I'm very grateful for that experience because not everyone has it. And I had the opportunity to give back in that way when I was a pediatrician, to have aspiring physicians who were brown and Black people to shadow with me and to just sit and talk to them about the journey and the process. So representation does matter from that professional career aspect. But in addition to that, as you mentioned, it matters for our younger generations. Many of the families that sought me out told me that they specifically wanted to have a Black pediatrician for their children so that their children could see what was possible. They wanted them to see someone that had skin that looked like theirs, to know that this was not a limitation, that you can do this. And they would not only seek out a Black pediatrician, but also the dentist and, other people that supported their family. That was very important to them. And it was an honor for me to be able to serve in these communities that would often be labeled as underserved, So those who were reliant on state-funded insurance, that I could step up and be that person that genuinely cared for them, that provided education, that they could talk to about their hesitations around vaccines or certain treatments, or even the discussion around weight and obesity, you know, things that I don't know that they would feel comfortable asking someone that wasn't from their community for fear of being judged or misunderstood. So representation matters across a lot of different areas. And I'm so glad that I was able to see that in my sister's pediatrician early on in my journey, and that I was able to be that for others who are coming up behind, as well as the families that I served.
Oh, wow. So powerful, so powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So now you are at medical school.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of doctors, medical school is, I want to say, a baptism of fire. It's grueling. It's grueling. I
Yeah.
speak to doctors from different countries in Africa. I've been speaking to doctors here in the US, but we all have the same experience. I found out that medical school is grueling. It really tests you as a person. What experiences did you have in medical school that you can share with us in terms of experiences that shaped who you are today?
Mm. So my journey may be a little different than the traditional medical student. I did get married and had a child during medical school. And so my pregnancy was complicated at the time. I found out that I was pregnant between college graduation and starting medical school. So it was very difficult hearing the news that I had a condition that would likely result in premature delivery and death of my unborn child. I was put on bed rest in the second trimester of my pregnancy and deferred my acceptance to medical school for 1 year so that I could put family first. And fortunately, my son arrived on my due date. So I was able to carry all the way to term, and he was a healthy little boy. But going through medical school, as you mentioned, grueling, I think, is like the perfect adjective to describe it. When you're doing it on your own, it's already grueling. Add to that taking care of a family, a newborn baby, in addition to my stepson, who at the time was 8 years old, and providing for a family, running a household, just added more pressure, more stress on top of that. And, my marriage did not survive medical school. And, I'm grateful for that marriage that gave me the gift of my son. And I really relied on my village of support to help me get through it. But that experience, I will say, really helped me understand the importance of having family at the forefront of my priorities. But also, I had lost important family member to me during my medical school years. So it also reminded me of the preciousness of this life and to not take it for granted. And so it helped to focus me during school and to expect it to be hard, because that's something that I think can serve as a stumbling block for many of us when we're expecting things to be easier than they are. And that just doesn't relate to medical school. It relates to life in general. We don't have control over what life brings our way, but we do have always choice in how we show up and respond to what life delivers to us. And I took that approach mentally to medical school. So I didn't expect it to be easy. I expected it to be hard. And I looked to my sources of support when it was difficult, when I needed to talk about things. I also relied on my community of fellow medical students, particularly the support group that I had built with other brown and Black men and women. And that honestly is what helped me get through. None of us is an island. We cannot do this journey alone. And so, just recognizing the importance of community wherever you find that. I do now strongly encourage all physicians, regardless of where they are on their medical journey, to ensure that they've got community support, because you need it throughout the different stages of your career.
That resonates so well with me. When I was thinking of a name for my coaching business, I settled on Ubuntu because that's exactly what it speaks to. I am because you are. It speaks to the interconnectedness. It speaks to the support that we get from each other, and how you are really a reflection of the people that are around you and that are supporting you. So that really, really speaks to me. And just sticking to that period where you are balancing being a young mother to a young child and the demands of medical school. And I'm sure you are coaching on this as well, the so-called work-life balance, right? It just share some strategies for us around how you approach that, because it's well, if you're a medical doctor at some point, whether it's medical school or beyond, we often struggle with this work-life balance concept. And I'm sure there's somebody who's sitting and listening, especially young moms, who can relate to what you went through. How did you, or how do you even coach on that? What strategies do you share with people based on your own experiences on that?
Yes. So, first I'll start off by saying that I don't think I was very good at this when I was younger.
Got
And
it.
it is something that is a continued practice for me as my life evolves,
Mm,
because it is not a static process,
mm,
right? It's dynamic. And what represents balance to you in your life at one stage may not represent balance for you at another stage. So
mm,
where I usually start with my physicians that I coach is, number one, saying this term work-life balance itself is a myth.
mm-hmm,
When you are working, you are living your life. There's not a
mm-hmm,
separation between like work and your life, right? And so that's the first thing. And I know people have, tried to come up with more appropriate terms like work-life integration, those kinds of
mm-hmm,
things. But I encourage the physicians to look at your life in a holistic way. And work is a part of that. Your identity with your work is a part of that. But you have all of these other identities and areas of your life, including your relationships, right? Your health, your finances, like all these things. And so, really looking to see, where do I feel extremely satisfied with my life? In what areas are those things going very well? Because you want to see if you can glean some insights for why those things are working as well as they are for you, right? And to understand that if you continue to pour in and do those things, that you can keep those areas of your life going well. but then also to look at the areas that are not going as well as you would like. And why is that? And so, what is it that you might need to focus on, or what energy and attention do you need to give to those areas of your life to bring them up to where you'd like them to be? And then the parts of our life that get overlooked are the ones that are neither going really, really well or going horribly wrong. We just kind of forget about, in between. So asking yourself, like, what is missing from your life that you may need to add to it so that you can feel more fulfilled across all of the areas of your life. And then finally, another question that I like to ask myself, and I encourage physicians to ask, is what do I need to let go of to feel more balance in my life, to get a greater sense of balance in my life? Because sometimes there are things that we're holding on to that are no longer serving us, but we're afraid to let them go. And so it's this dance, right, of understanding what's working, what's not working, what might be missing, what do we need to let go of. And if you can just sort of continue to think about it as a dance, then it doesn't feel like you're getting it wrong all the time. Like I don't have work-life balance, because that's not something that's going to be motivating. It's actually demoralizing to feel like you're not doing a good enough job in all these different areas of your life. So focus on what matters most to you for the stage of life you're in. If you have a family and you have children, maybe that's parenting that's at the forefront. So how can you find ways to prioritize that? And it's not an all or nothing, right? Like there's always a way that you can make it a little bit better. So focus on that. Like, how can I just make this 10% better? Because that translates to a different experience that you have of your life. And that's what's most important. Our lives are being lived. And sometimes I feel when I have conversations with physicians, and I felt this way myself, I felt like my life was just passing me by, that I was just getting up, doing all the things that I do for the day, laying down to go to sleep and getting up and repeating. But I didn't feel like I was actually participating actively in living my life. And so that's the one takeaway I want people to have who are listening, is to treat your life as the precious gift that it is, and to find more ways to actively engage and live your life on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, that is amazing. I think, as you've correctly said, most physicians, we are so caught up in the work, the demanding work that is required of us as doctors, and we often put our patients first, to the point where we don't live. It's just, as you said, rinse and repeat, a routine of waking up, helping the community, helping patients, helping society. And that's it, and then that becomes our life, that becomes our life. Thank you so much for that. Spoken like a true life coach. I feel as if I was in therapy, not even coaching, like I was in therapy. But now we are at a point where you're a qualified pediatrician. And I know your journey as a pediatrician takes us to integrative medicine. And you told me a very interesting story about how you got started with that, if you don't mind sharing that for the audience.
Yes, sure. So, I was always very interested in how to support the body and how to support our health in natural ways. And, when I got into medicine, I thought this would give me the knowledge and education that I needed to do that. But instead, there was a much heavier focus on pharmaceuticals and surgical interventions, and not really much education around self-advocacy for patients and how they could support and optimize their own health and well-being through food, through exercise, through community and relationships. And so I was seeking out that kind of information and just not finding it in my academic experience. And then I came across this book called Whole Child, Healthy Child. And it had foreword written by Andrew Weil, who created the program in integrative medicine through the University of Arizona. And as I read and learned more about this, I realized this was my idea of medicine. And I wanted to find out how I could be a part of that. I was constantly asking my mentor at the time, who was also our division chief, and talking about integrative medicine. And I looked at the program that they had at that time, which was a residential program. But as I mentioned, my marriage had dissolved, and I now found myself a single mom raising my son on my own, and just did not want to uproot him and move to Arizona for 2 years. And so I put that dream of being immersed in the world of integrative medicine on the back burner. And then fast forward like maybe 3 to 5 years, and my mentor sends me an email and says, "Hey, is this that integrative medicine thing you always are talking about?" And it was the opportunity to apply for a fellowship in integrative medicine through the University of Arizona. So the same program that I had looked at years before, except this time it was a combined virtual and on-site program. So I would have to go out and spend a few residential weeks in Arizona over the 2 years of the program, but the majority of the program would be done virtually. And I, was so excited to learn after applying that I was selected as one of the inaugural Bravewell Fellows in partnership with Duke. And when I finished my fellowship, the Duke Integrative Medicine Center was opening. And so it just worked out so nicely that I had the opportunity to do work with the Integrative Medicine Center at Duke, both in seeing pediatric patients and providing consultations to families who had children with chronic pain, and looking at other modalities that may be able to help them where pharmaceutical medication was not. And then also being part of education there. And so eventually moving from an associate director to director of the education arm of integrative medicine. And that's where I got to work with a lot of medical students and residents and even faculty, led a few grand rounds presentations to help the faculty at Duke understand this new discipline of integrative medicine and how we could use the body of evidence that was growing about some of these complementary therapies to better support our patients. And so, that's one of the highlights of my career, is being able to do that. And it's where I was exposed to mindfulness. That helped me personally to become more aware of what was happening internally as it relates to like my emotional and my mental health. And it was a really important stress management practice for me. And I started teaching children mindfulness practices in my office to help them mitigate some of the anxiety and stress that we were seeing. And eventually was invited by New Harbinger Publishing to write a book on mindfulness practices for children. And so it's called Parenting Your Stressed Child. And it's one of the works of my career that I'm very, very proud of. And being able to teach children a sustainable skill that they could take with them and use in different settings to help them manage their stress and anxiety is pretty powerful.
Before up, I want to ask about Michelle, just Michelle. What is she doing when she's, as you say, hanging back or, relaxing, got her feet up, so to speak? What does she do?
So I love music in many different forms. But I grew up after we left Spanish Harlem. When I was 12, we moved to Queens, different borough in New York City. And, Queens had a lot of the beginnings and origins of rap music. And so I love good old school rap. I also love some of the newer artists who I think are just lyrically brilliant, like Adele and Beyonce. So I have a very sort of diverse, eclectic love of different genres of music. So you'll find me listening to music, sometimes getting up and taking little dance breaks and singing along to the songs. I also love cooking. And so my wife and I watch cooking competitions, and I'll get little tips and try and replicate things in the kitchen. So that's one of my creative outlets. And my sister and I actually, we had a family chopped championship. And my sister won. But our spouses went out and got like the mystery ingredients in the basket. So we didn't know what the ingredients were until we actually started. And the whole thing was recorded. It was so much fun. So those are two passions of mine. I love to spend time with my two grandsons and with my wife, traveling any place that's warm, that has an ocean and a beach, preferably. I think that's one of the things we'll also be doing in retirement is just visiting new places and meeting new people and learning about different cultures. Those are some of the things that light me up and make my heart sing. Spending time with family and supporting the younger generations, my nieces and nephews. Yeah, those are the things that I do in
Nice,
my
nice.
downtime.
Very nice, very nice. Are you a reader? Do you read?
I do, not as much as I used to when I was younger. And I think
Yeah.
it's because it's less enjoyable. With the vision changes that come with increasing age, I found it really challenging to have corrective lenses that allow me to read paper books.
Hmm. And if you were to mention maybe three books that have had the most impact on you or the most memorable for you, which ones would those be?
Ooh, A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. I think the biggest takeaway I had from that book was understanding that our primary work in the world is to love. And that message just so resonates with me. Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. She is, for those who don't know, Tara Brach is a clinical psychologist and a leader in the space of bringing mindfulness practices to the masses and translating that into our day-to-day lives. She has founded a number of programs and leads the Insight community up in Washington, D.C. But her book shares her own journey of coming to be able to accept who she is, flaws and all. And that book really spoke to me, and all of the striving to be better, always to be better, and not necessarily accepting who I am today in this moment. So I highly recommend both of those. And the third book I would say is by Don Miguel Ruiz, who is a fellow physician, and it's called The Four Agreements. And he really breaks it down into simple language, the heart of the four things that cause the majority of suffering for most people. And if we could just keep these four agreements, then, we would suffer less and be more content with our lives. Yeah, I think the
Oh,
hardest
awesome.
the hardest of the four agreements for me is not taking anything personally. That one
Ooh.
is one that, yeah,
Especially
that I
when you're
struggle
speaking to
with.
doctors, right?
Yes, yes, it is. It can be
Somebody said
so
that we
challenging.
tend to be. Somebody said we tend to be quite thin-skinned as doctors, very uh, perfect because we're perfectionists to some extent. So, anything
Yes,
that
yes,
seems to be critical, besides the inner critic that we all have, we tend to take things very
yes.
personally. Dr. www.drmichelebailey.com, drmichellebailey.com. You can reach her there for live coaching. I really, as I said, I feel like I've been through a therapy session with you, and I'm really, I'm very sure people will come flocking, seeking your sage advice and just your warmth, it's just exuding through the screen. I know you don't see it from your side, but just very, very warm and calming, very calming space
Mm.
that you create in conversation. I'm very, very thankful for your time. Is there anywhere else that people can reach you, or the information is on your website?
Yes, so I would say, especially for physicians who are not feeling fulfilled in their career right now, if you want to chat about, simple steps you can take to have a better experience of your current career, or if you've been thinking about leaving medicine but you're undecided and you want to kind of talk that through a little bit, I'm happy to chat. It's a complimentary, confidential call, and they can reach me at callwithmichelle.com, and that's Michelle, callwithmichelle.com.
Please do reach out to Dr. Michelle, and I'm sure you will find somebody who is a trusted listening partner to help you think your career through. And Dr. Michelle, I believe that you have a message for us. You have some gifts, and it's not often that we get gifts nowadays. Do you want to share that with us?
Yes, sure. As I mentioned, there are so many physicians right now that are suffering and struggling with exhaustion, and they just don't really know what could make a difference. And so I have a free gift for your audience, for those who are interested, on how to develop a self-care practice that can help address some of the overwhelm and the exhaustion. Just simple, doable practices that can really make a difference and give some relief. And so I will share that link with you, and you can include that in the show notes for your listeners.
Absolutely. We'll be sure to add it to our show notes. It's not often that we have gifts, so it's Christmas come early for us as doctors. Really appreciate that, Dr. Michelle. Dr. Michelle, Bailey, it's been wonderful to be with you and appreciating your insights, your inspiration, bringing us into your life, sharing stories of resilience, of hope, of strength, of courage that we will take with us as we grow as doctors, because it is a path that we grow every single day, whether it's from patients, but particularly from other doctors like yourself. So I'm so grateful for your time and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the invitation and the important work that you're doing. Keep it going, please. It's so necessary.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of Doctors of the Baobab. I hope you found today's discussion both enlightening and empowering. Before we part ways, I want to extend a heartfelt invitation to the audience. If you are a doctor and you've been inspired by what you've heard today and you're ready to take action towards positive change in your life, consider working with me, your host, Dr. Nondumiso Makunga Stevenson, as your personal life coach. You can email me to learn more about my coaching services and how we can embark on a transformative journey together. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode filled with valuable insights and strategies for personal growth. Sharing is caring, so if you know someone who could benefit from our discussions, be sure to spread the word and encourage them to tune in. And let's stay connected beyond the podcast. Follow us on all social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Join the conversation, share your thoughts, and connect with like-minded individuals who are also on a journey towards living their best lives. Thank you for tuning in today. Remember, every small step you take towards your goals is a victory worth celebrating. Until next time, keep striving, keep growing, and keep shining bright. Doctors of the Baobab, where medicine meets motivation.